All right. Good morning, afternoon, and evening to all around the world. Here we are today with me, Jasiah, and the great Pete. And today we are going to go through some questions to ask ourselves um, so that you can let go of that's holding on to you, and that you can do the change work that you need. So Pete has got some great like frameworks of questions and then some specific questions. And this kind of came from last week. We were talking about more about finding ourselves again, and then just realizing over and over that, the right question can lead us to the right answer, or more so, just specific questions can lead us places that another question would lead us somewhere else. And I've found that, with conversations with others, conversations with ourselves, um, we often tell. Like, I think we often kind of talk at people, we talk at ourselves, we might tell ourselves what to do, tell our child what to do. Um, and, the power of being able to ask a question to find out more what that person, what that part wants, is really important. And, you know, we can ask logical questions, we can ask really wild questions that make no sense. So that pretty much but I think I know that there's an art form to it. There really is an art form to asking potent questions. So I'll go ahead and start going over some of the ones that you brought to the table today.
Yeah, and it's one when we think of these questions, I get a lot of clients and people in my life who they want to answer these questions like they're in school. Right? They're like, here's the answer. These aren't questions for you to necessarily have the answer yet. Right? These are questions to ask yourself to truly reflect on, to know, like, okay, this is actually what it means to me. Not just here's the question, here's the answer. Sometimes it is that simple, but for a lot of us, we're not there yet. And we need to go, let me take a step back. Let me take a day just on this one question, right? To really get deep into it, to go, yes, that is the answer, right? But with that, let's get into the first type of question. So the first type of question is our value questions, right? Now, value questions need to be the very first thing we need to think about before we let go of anything. Because our value, think of it like it's our compass, right? It guides us to our decisions and our actions. And so when we know what we truly value, right? When we know what truly matters to us, that's what makes it easier to make the new choices, whether it's setting goals, whether it's letting go or feeling right, right? If we don't know what's really driving us, right, our decisions, we're kind of just aimlessly going everywhere all at once, right? And so I look at the value question very much that GPS I plug into my car when I'm going someplace new, right? I need to know where I'm heading and why I'm heading there, right? Think about it. We don't go into the car and go, look, we put in a random address. Right? We have a very specific place in mind, and then we trust that guidance that it gives us, right? So think of the value question as that guide to go, oh, does this meet my values? How do I let it meet my values, right? But the question is, what's truly important to you about achieving this goal, right? Because without that, and again, like if you answer it quickly, you could be going, oh, well, it's important to me to let go so I feel better, right? That's a very top statement. But when you truly go, well, what's truly important about achieving this? And you give your time to think on it, you find those deeper level, right? uh, answers inside. That's not just, oh, I'm healthier. Oh, I'll be happier. Oh, I'll be this. It's no, like by letting this go, I'm freeing myself from this burden that I put onto me for the last 20 years, right? Letting go of this pain and this torment, this mind shatter that's been kind of holding me back, right?
Yeah.
That's so important for the value.
Mm.
You know?
Yeah.
Because just without it, where are we going to go from there?
Yeah.
You know, so this is one where spend, I say, the most amount of time on this one question before doing anything else.
And I just want to say too, like with this one, like with all of them that are coming, this is kind of the first question, right? And then could you just give some ideas of some tools that people can use to ask more questions within it? So, for example, what's truly important to you about achieving this goal? To live a better life. Okay, then the next question might be, what does a better life look like to you? For example, and then you
Yep.
might say, I have more money, and then you might say, what else? What else? You might ask to expand on it, and then what? What might you be able to ask from there?
Yep. So eventually you will get to a point where you can't go any deeper, right? So this is one where I love, like, so the what else questions, it's been used, man, since the 60s. um, it's used a lot by Tony Robbins, Dean Graziosi, David Groves back in the 80s and 90s used it quite a bit. In his work, he still uses it very much. But they all had their own name, but essentially just going deeper inside. And
Right.
so with this question, what's truly important about achieving this goal, right? You go, okay, it's to be healthier, right? So you ask again, what's truly important about being healthier? Oh, well, being healthier means I get to spend more time with my kids. So what's truly important to you about spending more time with your kids, right? Well, and I get to be that good role model. I get to teach them things versus the TV teaching them things. So what's really important to me about teaching them things versus the TV teaching them things, right? And you just go on repeat of just tacking on that answer to the next part till you can't come up with another answer. Because what happens is the deeper you go, the more of your internal value, your internal compass and guiding system you're going to get to,
Mm.
right? Because eventually you're going to hit something. And for a lot of people, it's about 7 layers, right? It's about asking the question 7 times.
Mm.
If you ask a question and you answer 7 really easily, you're not there.
Mm.
It should really be a struggle to come up with those last final few, you know?
Also, I've noticed, with that, it's like when you get to that moment, that's kind of seems like the wall from like the logical mind who knows to like that threshold to go into that, like now I need to feel, think, imagine, listen in a
Yeah.
deeper way. It's so I've noticed that when you get to that place, that seems
Yeah.
to be sort of that.
That place is that borderline between conscious to unconscious.
Right.
You know, and our values never live in our conscious mind. Right? It was one where they did a study of how ethical people are, and this was only a couple years ago. But they asked, I think it was like 100 people, like, would you take something from work? And they all went, no, 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 no. But then they go, okay, what if you could take something from work and know you never would get caught? Would you not take anything then? And they go, could it be anything? And they went, anything. And all of a sudden, it was like 80% of the people were like, yeah, I would probably take something, you know,
Right.
because a lot of times we view the conscious version of ethics as very much um, just that, like, oh, surface answer. No, of course I wouldn't take anything because we know that's what people want to hear. But when you can get to the unconscious part where it's like, or would I take something? No. Or if I knew I wasn't going to get caught, would I take something? No. And we actually mean no. It's because deep down inside, we have a higher priority of being honest over ethical. You know,
Yeah, that's an important distinction for sure.
it's a very fine line, and it's not that one is good, one is bad, right? There's people out there who value money over family. That's not bad, because they may go, I need the money to provide for my family, you know, but that means that person will probably do more things to get ahead with money at the sacrifice of their family. Where someone who may have a value of family higher will go, well, I may take in less money, but I get to spend more time with my family, right? They're both trying to do the same thing, but how they go about it will be very different. And so let's say we use the example of money. Like if someone has higher values over money over family, right? They would take very different actions than a person who values family over money. Now, they both could be striving for the same exact outcome. So if you don't know what your values are, it's not going to be congruent, right? They're not going to mesh. So you're not going to be like, oh, of course I can do this. Oh, this makes sense. Oh, it's going to be like, it doesn't feel like me. I don't know. Like, that's not what I would do, right? Because it doesn't meet your values. And so by knowing your values, it allows you to create a plan to match it and succeed at the same time. So,
right.
You know, the value question, again, is one of the most important ones we should ever take time on really knowing what our values are in life, because it will guide us, and it does guide us when we don't even know why we make decisions and how we make them.
So just recap, when you are doing value question, it's one of the most important ones. And you don't just stop with the one question, go at least 7 deep. And if you've gone 7 and it's still really easy for you, it means you haven't gotten there yet. So ask some more questions. And those questions are, with your curiosity.
Yeah.
So just really get more curious, and no question is a dumb question. And the question could even look like, well, what color is it? And you might go, that makes no sense. What is me wanting to provide for my family have to do with being a color? And it's just like, that's not the point. It's just like, ask the questions. You can, what kind of animal is it? What color is it? What does it feel like? Where is it sitting in my body? Where is it in the country? And I mean, Pete has so many other great kind of ideas for questions, but let's move on, unless you had something to say about that with the other ones. But
no, we can definitely move on. So the next one is our resource questions. So now that we have our compass, right? Knowing our values, when it comes to the resources, this is like digging into our backpack going, oh, what else do I have in here? What tools have I used in the past that maybe I forgot about, right? And those tools can really bring up our past strengths. It could bring up our past successes, even a skill set that maybe we forgot about just because we haven't had to use it in a while. So the resource, again, is just being able to dig in deep to go, oh, here's something I haven't used. Here's something I forgot I ever had. It helps us go, you know what? I got this because I've done it before. So the resource question really is, can you remember a time when you felt completely motivated and driven? Right? So you go, yeah, I can think of a time, right? Well, what's different about that time and this time? Now, in my experience, I will say some people will go, Pete, I've never felt that way. Right? And you go, great. Can you imagine what it looks like to be completely motivated and driven, to completely let go, to completely feel confident in yourself? As long as they can imagine, you go, great. Well, what was different about that and this time, right? So even if you can't think of that tool, right, from the past, you can still create that tool and link them together, right? That is very important to remember, because we all have the resources within us somewhere, right? Sometimes we create the tool. Sometimes we have the tool. We just forgot about it. But it's always there, right? The tools and the skills we need are there. this is really good because I love this because we're able to build really, I guess, build on stuff we've already accomplished, right? Because we may not remember certain things where we used to struggle. So I think a really good example of this is my daughter, right? So she's 5 years old, started kindergarten. I was having a conversation with a 40-year-old adult. And I was like, hey, I'm like, my daughter started kindergarten. And he went, oh my goodness, that's going to be a breeze, right? That's the easiest thing anyone could ever do. And I was like, to a 40-year-old adult, I would like to hope so. But to a 5-year-old who this is brand new, right? A brand new order of getting on and off the bus, of sitting there, of having to deal with kids of different ages to go, oh, I got to follow these lines to, gym or math or lunch. I have to sit there and pay attention for 8 hours a day. That's new. That's stressful. That is hard to a 5-year-old, not a 40-year-old, you know? Because they have the resources, right? That is, yes, they can easily go back. But at the same time, it's like, well, have you ever thought about a time where maybe you felt stressed out, like you didn't have the tools? For a lot of us, it's when we first start a job, right? We go, I don't know how to do all of this. It's overwhelming. They expect what out of me, right? But then we get really good at it. And then the new person comes in and then we're like, you got this, don't worry, because you have the tools now. You reminded yourself of the tools. And that's what we're doing, right? We're finding those things to go, oh, I can take that feeling from then to bring it to now. This is where when you talk about the colors, the animals, right? These are all things that speak to the unconscious mind, right? So if I go, man, when was the time, I really let go of something, right? And I remember that moment and I go, man, what color does that feeling look like? And I go, oh, that's an orange, a sunburst orange color. That is something my unconscious mind knows connected to that feeling. Consciously, it makes no sense. We don't worry about the conscious. Change doesn't happen there. But our unconscious mind knows. We go, great, let me apply that color to this situation. And just notice what's different. Notice what changes about it, because we have all faced tough stuff in our life. We've all gotten through it. And I know it means we can do it again.
And I think also when we have to ask these questions, remembering times, where you felt that way, I think you can also surprise yourself and just remind yourself that you've actually, like you said, you've done it before. You have some tools and all of that. So it gives you some validation and some ground to stand on.
Right. And
you wouldn't have gotten there without the questions. And I think that's, again, what's so important is if we're living our lives as if we know, as if we're living our lives based off of what we know, then we're missing out on what we've forgotten that we can get to by asking questions.
Right. And it's one where, in my experience, and I'll say for myself as well as the client, we start to take for granted our strength. Yeah. As if it's normal.
Right.
And
so that's more of the question. Again, that's really the power of the question, is that it pulls you out of your just like, I know this and this is how it is and everything. It's like, ask some questions and then listen. Because you might find yourself again when you thought you really knew yourself, or you knew that you didn't know yourself and you were frustrated. Have you asked some questions and listened to find out that you have resources?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the power of the question.
Power of the question. I love it.
Yeah.
Because, cool. So now that we have our compass, right, we have our tool set, now it's time to see where we're going with it, right? And that's our future pacing, right? That's a big thing in all healing modalities out there. You need to take a peek into your future, right? You need to, in a metaphorical way, test drive the car before buying it. So when we look at our values and we look at the tools we have and we start seeing our future, right? We get to go, does this make sense to me? Or does it make us go, man, I want this more than anything right now. I will give my arms and limbs right now to make this a reality, right? Because when we have that, the motivation to do what we need to do becomes a lot easier, you know. So the future pace question is one that I love. Again, I use it with everyone. Is imagine it's been one whole year, right? You achieved your goal a year ago. How does that feel? Right? It's in the past. It's done. It's over. What do you see yourself doing? What do you hear yourself saying? What are you touching around you? You know, and when you really get into that, when you really immerse yourself into the physical feelings and the sensations around it, we get more excited, right? It's that little teaser into what we're creating, what's to come. So if I look at it as someone who's letting go of smoking, right? Well, what does it look like? It's been a whole year, right? 365 days from September 13th. You've been a non-smoker. What do you see? Like, what do you feel about yourself? Do you feel good or do you feel crappy about yourself? They go, man, I feel better than I felt in a long time. Like, what do you hear around you? Like, oh, I hear my kids playing. My grandchildren get to come over to my house because, my daughter is not complaining how it smells like cigarette smokes. It's, I'm touching, all these plants and life around me. It's, oh man, like I'm breathing easier and I'm carrying, like I can feel the groceries all in one trip now versus the 13 trips I had to take because I just couldn't carry it. And, they're immersing themselves into this new image, this new life, this new identity. And then they get to go, all right, so based on my compass, does this make sense to me? Based on the tools I have of things I have overcome in the past, right? Does this make sense to me? And if it's check yes, they begin to really test drive this experience to go, I'm ready for it now.
Yeah.
Nice. Like I say, it's one of my favorite questions out of all of them. Once you know your values and you have the tools, I jump to this one quite a bit because I like to test drive it out. You'll also find things, man, that you never thought were in your mind, right? So like, I had a client who wanted to really take time to create their side hustle so they can have that extra money because, working full time, they really weren't paying all their bills. Like they were getting there, but like scraping by, right? And he just wanted to create that little thing of more money. And he saw himself in that future of that little side thing he can do on the weekend. And he was like, I don't like this. He was like, I'm giving up time with my daughter to do this. And family is more important than money.
Mm-hmm.
And he thought like that was the answer. He thought he had to go down that route. Said, okay, so if that's not it, like if that's the future where you're not going, man, I'd give everything for this. He's going into going, I don't know. It just doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
We get to go, let's take a step back then. We're not ready for that. What does feel right? And eventually it was, you know what? Working to get a promotion at work, getting a raise to be able to still make that extra money in that 9 to 5. And you know what? We worked, we talked, we planned. He talked to his supervisor. Sure enough, he got the raise he wanted. That extra money came in, and it fit his values. He didn't have to give up time with his daughter, but he could really see himself in that future. So we got to think about that when it comes to future pacing. Not every future is the right future. We got to be able to recognize that.
Yeah, it's smart. And nothing like, it's just kind of like when you go to the store, you see something that looks like a great outfit, and then you go to the dressing room, you try it on, and it's not right. it feels like a similar thing, it's like, how are you going to know till you try it on? And sometimes you try it on, it works nice in the dressing room, but then it doesn't work when you start to ride your bike and clean your car and do the things. You realize, oh, this doesn't actually fit
Yeah.
my lifestyle. It worked in this room, in this idea. So I can really see just the value of feeling, really experiencing through your imagination, your thought, like how something might be, and things could turn up that you wouldn't even believe. So I think it's important to be like, what do you hear around you? Walk around for a while. How does it feel? Like, what are on your feet? Like, what's behind you? Right? Just these questions that can just build, you know, if you in your future pacing spot, you go, where am I today? You go, okay, what can I see, hear, and touch, like you said. And then you could even go deeper, really build. Don't assume that you know where you are. It's like, ask around, like, what's to your left, what's to your right. Like, you might just see yourself in a place, but like, start to build the place by looking around. What's above you? What's 3 blocks or 200 feet in front of you, right? Because I know when I've done this work with you and with others, where it's like, you just kind of make the assumption that I'm here, as if that's a complete thing. But it could be, but you can really ask questions to start to see what's around you. And more, I mean, I'm always surprised. And it's like, well, what's in front of you? Well, what's beyond that? And what's beyond that? Or who do you see? You can even, like, who do you see next to you? Or what are you eating? Because if it's a fresh coconut off a tree, it might mean that you're not in Minneapolis, but you're in, like, Cuba. That might mean something. So it can go on and on. But what's inside your purse? What's in your backpack? I mean, just going on and on with these ideas of questions. Like,
Yeah. There's no such thing as too much detail, right?
right.
And I would say the other big thing when you future pace is going it with that non-judgmental attitude we've talked about before. Don't question why it's a certain place. Don't question why it's a certain thing in your purse or backpack or wallet. Don't question why the ground beneath you might be gravel when you thought it was going to be concrete. You just go, oh, cool. Like, this is something I didn't expect, right? And have fun with it, right? These aren't meant to be moments in our life where we're like, oh man, I can't think about my future, right? They shouldn't be those moments. They should be fun, creative, enjoyable moments, right? All these questions are designed to bring out the joy that we're trying to create, not more pain or misery or discomfort, you know? And
Yeah.
so let that be part of the process of don't judge, just welcome
Yeah.
whatever comes in.
Nice.
So
All
the
right.
next one is very important. And I think it's one we typically don't want to acknowledge, but we all hit them. And that is obstacles, right? I think of life very much like a video game. There's always obstacles in the video games, right? There's tricky levels, there's big bosses that we have to face, right? Now, in a video game, if we gave up every time something got tough, we would never progress through the game, right? We would never see the ending. We would never get to that moment that we got the game for, right? We would stay on level 1, level 2, right? Real life is very much that way. With everything we do, there will be obstacles. There will be big bosses we're going to have to face. And when we get knocked down, it's our ability to rise up tougher and stronger than the challenge, right? To learn how to beat the big boss, right? So eventually you get to them and you go, you know what? You can't stop me, right? I know I can beat you because I got knocked down 30 times before, you
Yeah.
know?
Oh, yeah.
And it's one where, like, you know, I was big into like Mario with,
I was thinking of Mario too.
yeah, right, where the castle levels, right, where they have those
Oh yeah.
orange fireballs spinning, and the stuff coming up, the things coming this way, and like you learned how to go. Okay, I got to wait here. I can run here. I got to jump here. I got to go underneath here. You didn't know that the first time you were in the level. You learned it when you're like, oh, there's another life. Oh, there's another life. Right. Then you got to work your way back up to when you go, oh, yeah, okay, yep. Right. So
And
think
here are
about
the
it.
extra lives and the extra coins that are hidden that you don't know about. Do you accidentally
Did you
jump
actually hit them?
invisible?
No. And so when it comes to obstacles, always go, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? Right? Would you run? Would there be moments where you say, oh, you know what? I got to pause for a moment for this to pass? Would it be a moment where you go, I know the big boss is coming. I know that wall is coming. So what do I need to do in my resource bag to pull out so when I get there, I can grapple right over? I can destroy it. I can blast through whatever. All right. Always know obstacles are always going to come. Don't ignore them. Don't pretend they don't exist, right? Because that's what my experience. And again, this is, I think, big in the health and wellness, field, is we like to pretend they don't exist. We like to think, oh, I'm going to get to where I need to be with no problems, you know. And then the first time you hit a problem, we lose that motivation. We lose that ability, that strength we thought we had. And it's just because we didn't plan for it. We weren't ready for the obstacles that are just inevitable.
Well, and I have to say too, what I'm finding so important with what you're saying right now is that without the obstacles, we wouldn't know how to get through. So there could be one reality of life where there's just no obstacles. But in the reality of life that there are obstacles, by having to go through it and fail and try again and fail and try again, then that's the gift of the game, the fight, the experience. Is like you're saying, like, okay, I did it last time like this. Now I need to step back, hold for a couple seconds, then press the B button and run through and jump around or what have you. And so it's nice to actually consider building a relationship to obstacles as the gift of teaching you, opposed to just the fucking obstacle.
Yeah.
So I was getting that from what you were saying
Yeah.
for my
Yeah.
own self,
Yeah.
let alone others.
Once we learn to embrace the obstacles, you will find a lot of the other stuff becomes a lot simpler.
Right.
You know. So after the obstacles, this is where we then get to really hone in on the purpose, right? So this goes along with making sure it's in your values, making sure you have the tools, right, the skills to know the future of like, this doesn't all look good to me. You can see the obstacles, and then you go, is this purposeful, right? So this is really that final destination that we're not just going to aimlessly drive until we find it. We're going to begin to build that route of, here's the fastest way, here's the safest way, here's the riskiest way, right? They're all right for the right person. So when we have our purpose, our why, it's as if we're beginning to fill that gas tank with unlimited gas, right? Because that's when we can handle the bumpy roads. That's when we can handle the rainy moments, or the moments there's traffic, or moments of stress. We're able to handle it. So with the purpose is, how will achieving this goal align with my purpose, or how will it make a difference in my life and the life of others? And again, when you think about it, this is another one of those questions where it has that very easy answer. Oh, of course, achieving this, was this going to make me a better person, right? Don't accept that answer. That answer is something someone else has told you years ago. It could have been a webinar, a podcast, something. That's just a very generic answer. It's something everyone has. So it's not a you specific one. So this is another one where take your time to dig deep, to find that purpose, to go, well, whether it's, you know what, this is going to leave my legacy for long after I'm gone. People will still be saying my name in an amazing way, hopefully, right? Of like, yeah, so by having my values met of, family over money, but I still get to bring in a good amount of money. It makes my family better. And now I got the tools because, I got that sunburst orange to help me through those tough moments. Here's the obstacles where I get to implant that sunburst orange to keep me going. And by the end, when I get there, people are going to remember my name for decades, centuries, millennia as a person who changed the world, right? So this is one where you can think about it in a way like Mother Teresa, right? Who, I, did so much to help the world, to change it in a humanitarian way. There's Henry Ford, who changed it in a technological way, right? Who created something that we're all still using. Um, it could be someone who just, I created a what's the word, like a fundraiser type of thing where I raise money to help people, and that's going to continue on, right? There's so many different ways to give it purpose, but we need that purpose to keep us going in the tough times. That's what reminds us to go one more day, one more hour, one more try, with everything we do. Yeah.
Or 100.
Yeah. Because every successful person, whether it's letting go of an emotion, they have to have a purpose to it, right? If it's to create a new height in their life, there needs to be purpose behind it. For everything, right? I think of what we do. We don't really necessarily go into it with the purpose of like, man, I want people to remember my name when I'm gone. We go into it going, if I can help one person, that means this world's a better place, right? And if they're better, they help one person, that's just a better world to live in, right? When we teach people how to change a habit and they thrive at it, right? We get to see their smile. And if that's not purposeful, like what is, And so we get to look at it. And again, some people could be the legacy where they go, you know what? I don't care how many people I help. I just want people to remember my name, right? Those are sometimes the people we get with like the Ponzi schemes. We remember their name, right? Might not be for the best reason though,
Well,
but
also just with the purpose is, just as simply as like if you want to let go of a habit or help something let go of you, to know what the purpose is of it.
yeah.
I think that there's the grand purpose of life, but then there's also the purpose, I think, of the smaller things. Not smaller, but smaller than what might seem like a grand purpose of life is, the purpose of, quitting smoking, of course, or,
Any
or
habit.
eating better or getting up earlier. There's just, when you're saying it, I'm just feeling like the depth of the purpose for it and of it, that it's probably obvious, but I'm just feeling it in this moment that even for those smaller steps and actions to also remember and give focus and credit to the purpose of it will help
Even
motivate.
even ones like letting go of anger,
Yeah.
right? That has a huge purpose to it, right? Now, I think of my own life. For the longest time, I always said to myself, I have to hold on to this anger. Because if I let go of the anger, that person wins.
Right.
That moment wins. And reality is, by me holding on to the anger, then they win.
Yeah.
And so my purpose would be, well, I want to be the victor. And if I'm the victor, it means letting go. There's my purpose for it, right? To know that, no, what they did no longer bears its weight on me. I get to choose how much weight I'm going to hold, and by that means I get to choose. I'm going to choose to let go of that.
Yeah. And again, just to bring it back to our topic, it's like ask yourself minimum 7 questions about it before you just assume that you know the answer.
Yeah.
Because more often than not,
Yeah.
the answer you might think of why, what you would, what your purpose would be for letting go of anger, if you ask 7 questions in and maybe more, you might come up with quite a different answer than
Right.
you expected.
It might turn into, you know what? My ex made me angry, right? I'm holding on to that anger to punish them. But when you go deeper, you might go, wow, like it wasn't them. It
Exactly.
was when I was 6, right? This kid on the
Generally,
bus.
usually.
Yeah. This kid on the bus angered me. And that's the first time I really experienced that.
Yeah.
Right. And I've just been carrying it ever since. They were just the needle that broke the camel's back. Right. They were just the most recent one. And so, yeah, when you go deeper, you're going to find all these other times where it did express itself,
Right.
you know,
Definitely.
which is huge.
Definitely.
Uh,
Well, let's go
the
to reality and responsibility. We're way past our time, but it's just because there's always so much.
So much.
So
I know.
much.
I'll try to go through these ones pretty quick.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, you don't have to go too quick, but let's just move on and then we can expand in the
yeah.
following weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. So the next one is the reality check, right? This is one where it's kind of reminding us where we are now. So if you think of all the questions up till now, it's been about creating something, right? About finding things to help us. The reality check is to go, well, this is where I'm in now. It could very much be a wake up call to go, I can't stay here any longer in this moment. Or it's a, you know what? I'm a big fan on the reality check every week, kind of check in. Where you got to go, am I making progress? Yes? Perfect. No, I'm not making progress. Well, what needs to change? Am I just spinning my wheels or am I moving forward? So this is just a pit stop on our journey to reflect and go, am I where I need to be? Am I where I hate myself? Or am I in a place of abundance and growth? You know, and being honest with whatever answer comes up, knowing it's not there to hurt you, it's there to help you.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and the last one is our responsibility. This is one of the most crucial ones when all is said and done. It's what's the first step you can take on your own to move closer to your goal, right? This is literally being the captain of your ship. This is holding the wheel. This is steering in whatever direction you want, right? This is the take charge question. This is the question where you get to decide what you're going to do next, you know, because you can stay that passenger and just sit there. Or you can grab the wheel and you go, you know what? If I'm going to let go of anger, I'm going to work on it. My first step is when I'm in traffic, I'm just going to take a deep breath. I'm going to go, you know what? I'm still going to get to where I need to get to. Everything will be okay. It's not the end of the world that I'm in traffic. Okay. Right. If it's, you know, spending more time with your family, it's all right. What's my first step I need to do to get that time with them? Not saying you're going to do it today or tomorrow, but what's the first thing I can do to move in that direction? You know, without action, all these other questions are pointless. Right? Without action, anything we do is pointless. You know, and so this is one where we get to grab the wheel, take ownership, take responsibility, pick the tunes we're choosing in the car ride, and just start putting the, you know, the pedal to the metal to go somewhere, to your destination preferably.
Yeah. Nice. Well, what I was thinking was, you know, it could be kind of fun to maybe do like next week, maybe we could do like a guided meditation in these various questions. Um, I guess if we're going into like different movie theaters, like, cause maybe cause I was just imagining like, you know, imagining how it looks for you to to just look at the reality that you're at now. And then, you know, go into another theater to see, you know, the obstacles and like watching, you know, something like that could be a fun experiment, you know.
Yeah, I'm up for that one. I think that'll be a good one.
Yeah. And in the meantime, just I think the main purpose for this for me today for bringing up these questions is because I find the asking the right questions again is can just really lead you to places that you wouldn't be led to, you know, before that. And I don't know exactly where else you could like read or investigate to look into other great questions. Pete, maybe you have some like resources.
Yeah,
Do you?
so uh, I'd say neurolinguistic programming, they have a lot on like breaking down limiting beliefs. They have great ones on finding purpose that can be very unique. Uh, the other one I would love, if you Google it, it's Socratic questioning, based from Socrates, uh, who was just known for asking really phenomenal questions. Uh, but those would be the one of the two best places to look because they spent a lot of time on their questions more than anything else.
Sweet. That's great. I think it's really um, I'm looking forward to looking into that, and that would be a nice place because sometimes we don't know what questions to quite to ask, you know. And I know for me, I still get stuck in that, like what questions to ask. But every time I ask a question, and the more that I do it, the more questions will come where I'm like, that was an awesome question. I don't even know where it came from, but there's no need to like ask and question it. Um, it was, well, maybe you could actually, but just you find the more you do it
Right. And
that
the other one, the problem I have was just questions in general. Like I love questions. You know me, I'm a big questions guy. The issue I have with questions is I don't want them to box you in. Right. And I think that's where a lot of whether it's practitioners, people who start questioning themselves, they get boxed into, well, it has to be this question. And it's like, well, no, maybe not. Maybe it's a different question. Right. And being willing, just like you said, allow those questions to kind of come in is crucial because that's when you ask yourself those questions. You go, wow, like where did that question come from? That's the question I actually needed. Right? That question
exactly.
made all the difference. And if you just go by like a list of questions, like, well, here's question one, here's question two and three, you can get lost in just the questions and not so much where the questions are supposed to move you.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, and a great point, that we can end with is just that these these are tools and tips as just a foundation, as just a beginning. These aren't the end all questions. These are the foundations for you really ultimately. Obviously, as a practitioner, they're great tools for your clients and for yourself as a doing self hypnosis and self reflection. um, as you ask some questions and you go deeper and get to that threshold, to that moment, and cross into it, all of a sudden the questions start asking you, right? And they start coming, especially if you allow them and you listen, which is kind of the theme every week, is finding ways to listen in and not question it, and see what comes and see what you can get from it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. As always, please, anyone and everyone who listens now and later, um, we have April saying that she is excited to see the replay and thanking us. And thanks for listening and watching later. You can watch the replay, subscribe to the YouTube channel so we can get bigger and seen more, and reach out to any of us with any questions. We love questions. And until then, all right. Thank you, Pete, for being here, and everyone else. Ciao.
Uh,